Welcome to Mom's Life Made Simple, the podcast for moms who want to go from chaos to calm, from overwhelmed to organized, and to find balance between family responsibilities and personal growth. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen. Let's make mom life simple. Hello and welcome to Mom's Life Made Simple. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and I'm joined today by Jenny Downs. Jenny, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, this is fun.
This is fun. I am super excited. Jenny worked with me before and has been in the Mom's Life Made Simple coaching program. And she is amazing, you guys. So Jenny's been married for 24 years. She has 5 kids. She is a cello teacher right now. She has 50 students. So she's working full time. Plus, she plays in a string quartet. She lives in the Salt Lake Valley, and I just have to say, she is someone I admire and have appreciated working with and getting to know. So you guys are in for a treat today. So what we want to talk about today, as you know, as we're rounding out January and finishing up January, we have been talking about mindset. And we've been really working on this simple thing, using our thoughts to create the kind of life that we want instead of letting our thoughts just do the thing they do and kind of control us. So Jenny has been part of the challenge, doing the challenge with all of us. So I would love to start off just asking, how did you implement this challenge? What was your goal for January?
Yeah, so my goal was, and maybe a little bit of a mix of the 3 ways that you gave examples of that we could do. It was mostly one, but it was mostly I wrote out a mantra. It's kind of a longer one, but it said everything that like I really wanted to incorporate to what I was really feeling. But I wrote it down in a journal and I also typed it out into my phone, and I had the goal of reading it every day. And the mantra, which I'll share with you, is actually a belief I already had for myself, I think, but it was also a way of kind of reframing my thoughts towards a particular project I had worked on and rejected.
Okay.
Anyway, but I had a lot of other things in my life that came to mind as I was writing out the mantra too. And then even more as I read it. But then the main catalyst of it was this project that I referred to. Can I read it to you?
Please. Yeah. Read it to me.
So the mantra is, I acknowledge that many good things come my way, that a higher power works miracles in my life daily, and that I have been gifted with many abilities. I acknowledge that I also have power to create and do many good things, be a part of miracles, and that using my abilities to create the things I want or feel inspired to do will bless the lives of others. Don't wait or expect all things to happen for you. Take ownership and change or create the things that you can. So that's the mantra. And then with it, I gave myself a little bit of kind of finding the good challenge with it. It wasn't like I wasn't holding myself to like do this as well every day, but I just put challenge, find the good or miracle, or create the good or change, which goes right with my mantra. And so I did keep track of a handful of things along the way that I either saw the good or created something that I wanted to. So.
Okay, I definitely want to dive into that. But first, let's talk about this mantra. That is amazing. So you just wrote that. And I'm curious, as you wrote it down, read it, worked on it, paid attention to it each day, how did you feel? Like, what is the feeling that brought up for you?
Empowerment was one. I think that's probably the biggest one. Encouraged. Those are the 2 main things.
Okay, those are huge. Those are cool. You know, as you read it, for me, it was really like what I felt was peace. I mean, it's so interesting. Yeah. Same words, right? And totally different thing. And I love that that's what it did for you, like empowerment. Okay, I get to choose this, and I can see how empowerment would be part of that. Okay, so I'm also wondering, did you have a set time of day? How did you remember to do this every day?
Okay, so I just have a planner, and I just have like a handful of little daily things that I want to be doing. And it was just on my daily things to check off. So that's how I did it. And mostly I did it first thing in the morning. Sometimes on my really early mornings, and I'm up and out faster. It was just later on the day when I remembered. I had it on my phone, and I also had it in a journal. So depending on what I had, that I could go to it and read it.
Perfect. Oh, I like that because it was like multiple ways to make sure it happened. And because you prioritized it, then it did happen. So you mentioned that you really paid attention also to finding the good. I'd love to hear some of your experiences with that.
Yeah. So January 1st, finding the New Year snow, we got dumped on in Salt Lake, which for us is like such a huge blessing. If you're in there, you know what a drought we've been in, and we have gotten more snowpack in this year than in like 20 something years, they're saying. And so I just remember being like seeing the good, just having the more snow on New Year's and how much it was, and being like and usually like I don't love cold and I don't even like snow.
Yeah.
But I knew the good that it was. So that was like one little thing, and just like how something actually that I actually maybe dislike actually was the gratitude totally changes how you see things. So my little 9-year-old daughter, she's my baby, she had a little fight with a friend. And one day she came to me, she's like, Mom, I need to go to the store. I need to get a card for my friend. I'm going to bring it to her and say, I'm sorry. And that was my good for the day, that I pointed out, like that my daughter like saw that and took her own initiative to want to go and apologize to her. And just the pride that you have in your child when they do something like that and see their own mistakes and want to make things right. That was one of them was like, because I had like find the good or the miracle or create the good or the change. Like this one just kind of came to me, and that's kind of part of the thing. Like some things just come to us, and then we can also take that and make a change or whatever. And I think together is where the real power lies, like taking the things that just come to us automatically and bringing our own self to it and being able to make something with that. So my husband and I are doing this little challenge thing where we get like text, even if it gets a text twice a week, and gives us a little challenge to do for the other or ask the other or something. He didn't say that this came from him, but I'm 99% sure because it doesn't sound like him. Because he's texted me and he says, what can I do to lighten your load? I was like,
that's an amazing question.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good question. And at first I was like in a really frazzled state when he sent that. And I was like, I don't know. And I thought, okay, no, I can actually create some change with that question. I could probably list 100 things somebody could do to lighten my load. So I did. I gave him one answer of something that he could do and make just a little change just like that, because that question was asked. And I decided, okay, I'm not just going to put that off. I'm going to take that and answer it. So that was one thing that I really noticed.
I want to circle back to something you said, because I love how you drew in both how the mantra helps you see the good. And that's really the point, is combining, a mantra is like setting the stage so that the good things can happen, right? And so then it allowed you, as you kind of planted this seed every morning, allowed you to then like, oh yeah, no, I said I was going to create this, and then it allowed you to create it. So I think that's so cool. Were there other experiences in finding the good? And
I noticed on one day, what happened back in December, I was making some changes in my teaching schedule for the new year. And the thought came to me that I could change the date that I go back to teaching, because it was going to be like the day after New Year's when school was going back in. And we were leaving that weekend, and I was feeling stressed about, I was already going to be behind trying to do makeup lessons in the very first week. And the thought came to me, start a week later.
Yeah.
And it like felt so good to me. And I was like, and my thoughts kind of challenged it, like XYZ, why not, but it like came to me strongly enough. I was like, I got to make that happen. And then you came to me even before January and said, start this because you were going to ask me to do this challenge. And so with that in mind too, I was like, this is a change I can create. And I'm a big believer in like disruption patterns to help yourself maybe get a restart or a reboot, something. So I decided to take that week and just start a week later. And then something else came to me when I decided to do that. But I wrote down the good that day when I went back to teaching, like how renewed I felt, such a renewed sense of energy mentally going back to my teaching, instead of like if I'd done it a week later, with feeling the thoughts that I had of being frazzled. I don't think I would have had that, because at the end of the year and the semester, like I needed the break, and having that extra week like really helped me renew my mental energy to go back and head first again.
Yeah, I want to point out something really powerful in that. So, what I'm hearing is the power of writing it down, because I think sometimes we don't take the time to recognize the lessons that we're learning. And the fact that you recorded this, so next time that comes up, whether it's the summer or next year or whenever, and you have a break again and you're like, oh, but there are reasons and I need to jump back in, it gives you evidence that you can trust yourself, and that, like, hey, look what happens when I did this, and that worked for me. And it teaches you that lesson. Slowing down, it's really speaks to this idea of mindset, instead of just, and it's disruption, like you've said, instead of just going along and doing the thing, and well, school's back in on this date, so I have to start my classes this date, to disrupt the pattern and take a step back and say, what actually works for me. And now you have evidence of, okay, this did work for me. So that's
Yeah,
super.
I love that I wrote that down, because honestly, I hadn't even remembered that until I just flipped my page and I was like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, which also speaks of the importance of journaling, like write stuff down. We forget so often. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit here and ask, what was hard for you about doing this challenge? Were there any difficulties in implementing it? So far, we've heard, the good stuff. What about kind of the hard part?
Yeah, so I think the challenge in and of itself was simple, and I think that was intentional on your part.
Right.
So something as simple as finding a mantra and reading it every day, that can be simple. But the reason for a mantra is, I think, to be intentional about something that we think about, and that those will guide us to show up differently in our life. And it's the showing up differently that can be the challenge, right?
Yeah.
So what I referred to earlier was that, and I think when I was in your course, I was making goals towards making a cello course.
Yes.
Does that sound familiar to you? Okay.
Yes.
And I think every week I was making goals on making a video or 2 videos this week or whatnot. Well, last March, I had gotten most of my videos done. And I decided to go whatever platform I was using to input it online or whatever, and start that process. So I worked on it one weekend for quite a while. And since March, I haven't touched it. My brain rejected it because the computer part, I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's not what I do. And for some reason, my brain just have rejected for 10 months. And so it's kind of was my big thing. After I decided to take that week off, what came to me was, you can use that week to go back to this and see what you can accomplish. And so in trying to create my course in itself, obstacles came up, and I kept going back to the mantra, because the mental obstacles come up for you when you're trying to make changes, or you're trying to create something, do something different. I think that's where the challenge comes in, is actually making the changes or doing the thing. So I took that time, and challenges came up, but going back every day to read that thing just re-encouraged me.
Oh, that's so good. I love that you used it to kind of reignite something that you knew you wanted help with. And, so often we think, okay, I want help. I need to go outside myself. I'm really struggling with, in this case, putting together this cello course. So there's lots of different ways you could have solved that problem. You could have hired someone to do part of it. You could have, worked with technology specialists. There's a ton of different things. But going inward and changing the mindset and then being able to do it is the most powerful thing you could do in a situation like that. And I think it applies to so many scenarios we find ourselves in. It's almost easier in some ways to just, it's like giving up. I don't know how to do it. Someone else has to do it for me. And then we have excuses. If someone else has to do it, well, I can't afford that, or I don't have the time to work with someone. But if it's only from us, if it's just a mindset shift, that kind of breaks down on the excuses, right? We don't have excuses anymore, but it's also the ultimate. And that is probably why you said, when I asked, how do you feel when you read this mantra, you said empowered. That's the ultimate empowerment. So that kind of ties that all in for me. You've kind of already answered this next question, but I'm just curious if there's anything we haven't explored, which is, what did you notice for you with this challenge, or what difference did it make for you? Is there anything that we haven't covered there?
I think you kind of tapped in it, that I noticed that my brain is really good at coming up with resistant thoughts
Yeah.
when you want to do something big or new or different. And I already did know this, but I learned that having a strong mental thought to default to, written out for me, reminded me of the power that I do have at my fingertips literally all the time.
Yeah.
But like the little thoughts, like even as big as, well, like the thought of, oh my gosh, I have to go and search the emails to even see, because I don't remember the name of the platform I was using. Like that's a big enough deterrent, to deter me for 10 months.
Yeah.
Something as little as, I'm gonna have to go search my email. That's gonna take me 2 minutes. Like I don't, right? But we
It's
have the
funny.
power all the time if we just like sit down and be like, okay, really?
Yeah.
Just like you have the power to create something like right here.
I feel like that's almost hard to admit. It's almost hard to say, like, okay, searching my email kept me from doing something, but it's common because it's overwhelmed, because that's just step one in a series of 100
Right.
steps, and it's just like, oh, that one thing I need to do. And so I love that this mantra kind of kept you on track. So way to go, first of all. Congratulations for doing the challenge, for letting yourself see and prove to yourself what a difference it could make. So I'm curious about, after having done this and really focused on it for a month, how will things shift for you as a result of that process?
Okay, well, like two things. My program is done.
Congratulations on
Yeah.
that also.
Like
That's
I
amazing.
went from ignoring something for 10 months and I literally had everything that I could do within a week. And then I was waiting on some stuff because I did use other people because my husband does stuff, whatever. And I was just waiting on him. It's done, except that you can't buy it yet because we just have to figure out the payment thing. That's it.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like the little things in other areas of my life that I decided to focus on after the main thing that was done, just little things, random things like that I kind of read, like here's how I created this or that. But the mantra I wrote for me is something I tend to keep reading and using to identify other areas of my life that I can create or improve or make a change in. I'm thinking that I can use it over like a set period of time on a different specific area, that to see and kind of experiment, like what else can I affect in my life? What else can I make this change in or create? And so I think long term, I think there's no telling what it can do, because it really relates to so many, like really every aspect of my life I could plug this into and
Yeah.
see what difference I could make. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful and so true. I love the concept of treating it as an experiment. And then what you said, long term, there's no limit to the difference that can make. That is amazing. That is the hope. I hope that all of you, as you've done the challenge, have had a similar experience. And if you haven't, it's not too late. Like this is something, like Jenny said, it's simple. It's something you can go back to. It's something you can decide to do. And maybe it is an experiment where you try something different and like, this didn't really make that big of a difference for me, but what will? Something in your mindset will. I love the things that you shared. Now, you said your course isn't available for purchase. If people are interested, I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about that, or where people can follow you or get more info if they're interested.
I do have a website. It's jennyscello.com. It just gives information about my private lessons. So I imagine that I'll probably have it up on there. Once I get that, there'll be a link to be able to get the course. I do have an Instagram. It's Jenny Downs Cello. But yeah, so
perfect.
It's yeah. I will say, like, I think what's especially great about doing something like this with the little mental challenge and how simple it can be, that really it just can affect little things in your life. Like as much as like creating like an organized space in your home that you've been putting off, like that was one thing I did one day, like, oh my gosh, I have 20 minutes. I literally that's been sitting there for 6 months, like staring me in the face. And, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
just things, what just changing our thoughts can do to make little differences here and there can actually over time make a big difference.
Yeah. And I would say makes all the difference. It
Yeah.
really does. So thank you, Jenny, for being here. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for doing the challenge. And thank you to everyone who's participated in the January challenge. Stay tuned because next podcast, I'm going to be introducing the challenge for February. I hope you'll all be a part of it, and we will see you then. Bye. Thank you for listening to Mom's Life Made Simple. I'm so glad that you're here, and I want you to join us for the 2023 Self-Care Challenge. Each month, we will be diving into a different area of simple self-care, learning how to create habits that allow you to make time for yourself. So to join the challenge, go to chanelnielsen.com/selfcare 2023. When you join, you'll get access to free downloads that help you to create and track your new habits, as well as a link to the community so that you can discuss and win prizes that the guests are sharing on the podcast. I'm so excited for you to make self-care part of your year in 2023.